Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at cuckoos.
Really fascinating birds.
Yeah. We'll be looking at them from a backward gene's eye view of evolution.
Oh, that's a cool way to think about it.
Yeah. Like, what does a gene see when it looks back at all the bodies it's been in, over generations?
Yeah, over evolutionary history.
Exactly. Our main source for this deep dive is Richard Dawkins' The Genetic Book of the Dead.
Classic.
Specifically, Chapter 10. Get ready for some crazy adaptations.
Oh, yeah. Cuckoos have some wild evolutionary tricks up their feathery sleeves.
Seriously. Okay, so anyone who knows anything about cuckoos knows that they're brood parasites.
They basically outsource their parenting to other birds.
Right. But it's even wilder than you might think. Like these birds. They're master manipulators.
Right, from the moment the egg is laid.
Exactly.
Now, brood parasitism, it's not unique to cuckoos.
Right.
Cowbirds do it. Cuckoo finches.
Yeah.
But cuckoos, they're kind of the celebrities in this field. They've really perfected the art.
They really have, and they're ruthless. Like, imagine a tiny cuckoo chick.
Fresh out of the egg.
And it's already pushing its foster siblings out of the nest. It's crazy.
Like the scene from a horror movie, but in miniature.
Right. And the foster parents are clueless.
They just keep feeding this giant imposter chick.
It's amazing.
Nature can be pretty harsh sometimes.
It can. So Dawkins mentions this guy, Nick Davies.
Ah, Nick Davies, the cuckoo guru.
Yeah. He wrote a whole book on cuckoos, literally called Cuckoo.
It's a must-read for any bird enthusiast.
And in it, he describes his research site, this 11th century cathedral.
Wow, an 11th century cathedral.
I know. He writes, and I quote, "Ely Cathedral sits on the raised land of the Isle of Ely, from where Hereward led his raids against the Normans."
It's amazing how these evolutionary dramas play out against the backdrop of human history.
Seriously. Okay, so those cuckoo chicks, total con artists, but it all starts with the egg. And this is where things get really interesting.
Ah, yes. Cuckoo's egg. A masterpiece of deception.
Seriously. Cuckoos can mimic the eggs of their host species.
And not just a casual resemblance. We're talking about a spot-on match, a perfect forgery.
It's mind-blowing. Cuckoo eggs, they come in all sorts of colors and patterns.
Each one tailored to a specific host species.
Like how? How does a cuckoo, let's say a meadow pipit cuckoo, lay an egg that's identical to a meadow picket egg,
Right.
and then lay a totally different egg in a reed warbler's nest? Like, do they choose what color to lay?
Well, it's definitely not a conscious choice.
Okay.
To understand how they do it, we have to dive into a bit of bird genetics.
All right, let's do it.
So unlike mammals, where females are XX and males are XY, in birds, it's the opposite.
Oh, interesting.
Females are ZW and males are ZZ.
Okay.
So that means the W chromosome is passed down only through the female line.
Okay, so genes on the W chromosome would have like a unique perspective on evolution, right?
Yeah.
They'd only see their female ancestors.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the concept of gentes. These are distinct lineages of female cuckoos that specialize in parasitizing specific host species.
Oh, so like cuckoo families or clans, each one with their own tradition of targeting a particular bird.
Exactly. And those traditions are passed down from mother to daughter.
That makes sense.
So you could say that each gens has its own secret family recipe for egg mimicry.
Encoded on that W chromosome?
Right. And that's why those eggs are such perfect matches.
Okay, so it's like each gens has its own little evolutionary niche.
Exactly.
Okay.
Of course, it's not always perfect. Sometimes cuckoos lay eggs in the wrong nests,
Oops.
and not all gentes exhibit flawless mimicry.
So there are some cuckoo imposters out there that aren't so good at blending in.
Precisely. For example, cuckoo eggs laid in dunnock nests are a pretty obvious mismatch.
Really?
Dunnock eggs are a beautiful blue, while cuckoo eggs are usually speckled brown.
So the dunnocks just accept these brown eggs.
It seems so. Which brings us to the concept of an evolutionary arms race.
An arms race between cuckoos and their hosts.
Exactly. It's like a constant battle, each one trying to outsmart the other.
Okay, that makes sense.
So to understand this arms race, we have to consider two key principles.
Okay, lay them on me.
The first one is the life dinner principle.
Life dinner principle.
It states that the pressure on prey to survive is much greater than the pressure on predators to succeed.
Right, because if the prey loses, it's game over. But if the predator loses, it just goes hungry.
Exactly. And in the context of cuckoos, this means there's immense pressure on the host birds to evolve ways to avoid being parasitized.
Because their very survival depends on it.
Right. But then there's the rare enemy effect.
Rare enemy effect.
It suggests that because encounters with cuckoos are infrequent, the selection pressure for hosts to evolve strong defenses is weaker.
Okay.
Like if you live in a neighborhood where burglaries are rare, you might not bother installing an alarm system.
So the hosts just don't invest in those defenses because they don't encounter cuckoos that often.
Exactly. So these two principles, the life dinner principle and the rare enemy effect, they could explain why some hosts, like those dunnocks with their blue eggs, haven't evolved strong defenses against cuckoos.
It's like they're playing the odds.
In a way, yes.
Okay, so the cuckoo egg gets into the nest, sometimes just by chance.
Right.
But then this giant imposter chick hatches. You'd think the foster parents would notice something's off.
You'd think so, right.
Yeah.
But remember, birds aren't operating with human-like cognitive abilities.
Right, it's not like they're doing a DNA test on the chick.
They're responding to instinct and programmed responses. Think of a parent bird as a feeding machine triggered by specific cues.
And cuckoo chicks are basically hacking those cues.
Precisely. They've evolved these sneaky ways to exploit those ingrained parental instincts.
So it's less about the foster parents being dumb and more about the cuckoos being incredibly manipulative.
Exactly. Dawkins uses the analogy of a boiled frog. A frog dropped into boiling water will jump out immediately, but a frog in cold water that's slowly heated won't notice the danger until it's too late.
So the cuckoo chick doesn't hatch looking completely different.
Right.
It starts out small, but then it grows and grows.
Until it's this giant presence in the nest.
And by then, the foster parents are already too invested in their caregiving routine to notice anything's wrong.
It's a subtle form of deception that's incredibly effective.
Wow, so cuckoos are masters of manipulation from the egg stage to the chick stage.
They've got it all figured out, but there's more to it than just size, you know.
Oh!
Cuckoos also use what we call supernormal stimuli.
Supernormal stimuli.
These are exaggerated features that trigger an amplified response.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
For example, oyster catchers, these shorebirds, they've been observed trying to incubate giant dummy eggs.
Dummy eggs.
Yeah, much larger than their own.
Why would they do that?
It seems they're hardwired to respond more intensely to something bigger.
Even if it's completely absurd.
Exactly. So size definitely matters in the cuckoo's world. But they've got other tricks up their sleeve, too.
Like what?
Well, cuckoo chicks have these incredibly loud begging calls.
Like super demanding babies.
Basically. And their calls often mimic an entire brood of hungry chicks.
So it's like they're saying, feed me, feed me, feed me.
And feed all my imaginary siblings, too.
It's genius, really.
Dawkins mentions these studies where researchers put a blackbird chick into a reed warbler's nest.
Okay.
The reed warblers fed it, but not as enthusiastically as they would a cuckoo chick.
Interesting.
But when researchers played recordings of cuckoo chicks begging, the reed warblers immediately started feeding the blackbird chick more.
So it wasn't just any begging calls, it was the specific sound of cuckoo chicks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those calls triggered a feeding frenzy.
Wow.
It's like those calls are perfectly designed to hack the reed warbler's parental instincts.
So it's not just size, it's sound, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the visual element.
Mm.
All nestlings have bright gapes, those open mouths, to attract their parents' attention.
Right. Like, hey, I'm hungry, put food in here.
Exactly. And cuckoo chicks, they've taken this gape strategy to a whole new level.
How so?
For example, reed warbler chicks have yellow gapes, while cuckoo chicks have red gapes. Now, you might think the red gape would be a stronger stimulus.
Yeah, it seems more attention-grabbing.
But experiments haven't really confirmed that. It seems the size of the gape is more important.
Okay, so a bigger gape equals more food.
Precisely. Even as hatchlings, cuckoo chicks have larger gapes than individual reed warbler chicks.
It's all about maximizing that visual impact.
And when you combine that larger gape with their super loud begging calls, it creates this irresistible combination that just compels those reed warblers to feed, feed, feed.
It's like a double whammy of manipulation.
Dawkins even shares this anecdote about a cardinal, you know, the American songbird.
Yeah.
It was observed repeatedly dropping food into the open mouth of a goldfish.
A goldfish. Like the kind you win at a fair.
That's the one. It highlights the point that these birds aren't making conscious decisions. They're responding to ingrained instincts.
So it's like their brains are saying, big gape, must feed.
Exactly.
Okay, bigger gape, louder calls. Are there any other visual tricks cuckoos use?
Oh, absolutely. Some cuckoo species have taken this visual deception to an even weirder level.
Weirder than a goldfish getting fed bird food?
You bet. There's this Asian cuckoo, Horsfield's hawk cuckoo that has dummy gapes on its wings.
Dummy gapes? What does that even mean?
It's crazy. They have these yellow patches of skin on their wings that look like extra mouths.
So this cuckoo chick is waving its wings around, flashing these fake mouths at its foster parent.
Exactly. It's like a bizarre puppet show designed to trick the foster parent into feeding those fake mouths.
And it works.
It does. Researchers in Japan observe robins, the host birds, actually trying to stuff food into these dummy gapes.
No way!
Before realizing their mistake and feeding the real mouth, of course.
That's just incredible. Cuckoos have really mastered the art of deception.
And there's another cuckoo species in China, the whistling hawk cuckoo, that does the same thing. It's a reminder that cuckoo tactics are diverse and constantly evolving.
So we've got cuckoos with fake mouths, supersized gapes, and begging calls that could rival a rock concert.
It's a whole symphony of manipulation.
What other examples of this backward gene's eye view can we find in nature?
Well, let's shift gears for a moment and dive into the world of fish.
Yeah.
Specifically, a species called Poecilia parei.
Poecilia parei.
They're mollies and guppies. These little fish have a fascinating story to tell about color and the Y chromosome.
Fish with colorful personalities. I'm in. Tell me more.
These fish exhibit what we call color polymorphism, meaning there are different genetically determined color types within the same population.
Oh, so like different morphs or varieties within the species.
Precisely. And get this, the color variation only affects the males.
So the guys get to be flashy.
Exactly. There are 5 distinct male morphs. 3 of them have stripes like tram lines, with red, yellow, or blue coloration between the lines.
Like tiny little race cars.
The 4th morph has vertical stripes.
Like a tiger.
And the 5th morph is plain gray, similar to the females.
So the females are all pretty much the same.
Yeah.
It's the males who get to show off.
It's a common theme in the animal kingdom.
So what's the story with these different male morphs?
Well, each morph has its own unique behavior. The tigers, as we'll call them, are the largest and most aggressive.
Okay.
They chase away rivals and mate with females by force.
Sounds a bit rough.
The grays are the smallest and sneak in for opportunistic matings.
Sneaky little guys.
Their resemblance to females might actually help them avoid aggression from the larger males.
Camouflage as a mating strategy.
Exactly. And then there are the 3 tramliner, morphs with their colorful stripes.
Right?
They're intermediate in size and court females by displaying their colorful flanks in a kind of dance.
A fish dance-off.
You could say that. Now, here's where the connection to the cuckoo comes in.
Okay.
Evidence suggests that this color polymorphism in the males is inherited exclusively through the male line.
So a male fish's color is determined by its father and grandfather, but not its mother.
That seems to be the case. It suggests that the genes determining color morph are linked to the Y chromosome.
Just like the cuckoo's egg coloration is linked to the W chromosome.
Exactly.
So both cuckoos and these fish are using sex chromosomes to pass on their unique traits.
Precisely. And this allows us to apply that backward gene's eye view again. Imagine you're a gene on the Y chromosome of a male Poecilia parei looking back at your ancestors.
Okay.
You would only see a lineage of males, all belonging to the same color morph, all sharing the same Y chromosome.
So each color morph has its own distinct Y chromosome lineage.
Even though they all share ancestors through the female line.
It's like separate branches on the family tree, but all connected at the root.
Precisely. And it's this separation on the Y chromosome that allows the different color morphs, with their associated behaviors, to persist within the same population.
It's amazing how genes can shape not just physical traits, but also behavior.
Absolutely.
So what happens to these different color morphs over time?
Well, researchers believe that each color morph has an equilibrium frequency in the population.
What does that mean?
If a morph becomes too common, it's somehow penalized and its frequency goes down.
Okay.
If it becomes too rare, it's favored and its frequency increases.
So there's a kind of balancing act going on, keeping all 5 morphs in the mix.
Exactly. It's a dynamic system, and we're just beginning to understand the forces that maintain this incredible variety.
It's like nature is constantly tweaking the recipe for diversity.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so we've explored cuckoos, their egg mimicry, and their manipulative chicks. We've even taken a detour into the world of colorful fish and their Y chromosome lineages.
And all of this through the lens of the backward gene's eye view.
It's mind-blowing to think about all that evolutionary history hidden within our own genes. It makes you wonder what stories our genes would tell if they could talk.
It really is a humbling thought, isn't it? We tend to view evolution from this human-centric perspective. But there are so many other fascinating perspectives out there waiting to be discovered.
It's true. I'm still trying to wrap my head around those cuckoos, their adaptations, their manipulative tactics, that incredible egg mimicry. It's like something out of a science fiction novel.
And don't forget those colorful fish with their Y chromosome lineages.
Oh,
Another testament to the power of natural selection to shape diversity in the most unexpected ways.
it's clear that evolution isn't just about survival of the fittest. It's also about the survival of the most cunning, the most adaptable, and sometimes even the most deceptive.
And the backward gene's eye view gives us this unique and insightful way to appreciate the intricate tapestry of life that's unfolded over millions of years.
It's like those genes are whispering stories of ancient struggles, triumphs, and adaptations, passing down the secrets of survival from one generation to the next.
And as we've seen with cuckoos and these colorful fish, those stories can be stranger and more fascinating than we could ever imagine.
So if genes could remember, what stories would your genes tell about your ancestors and their remarkable adaptations?
It's a question worth pondering. And if you're as fascinated by cuckoos as we are, I highly recommend checking out Nick Davies' book, Cuckoo, and Claire Spottiswood's work on cuckoo finches.
They'll leave you with a newfound appreciation for these avian masters of deception.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, that's it for part 1 of our Cuckoo Deep Dive. Join us next time as we delve even deeper into the world of these feathered con artists and explore the strategies their hosts use to fight back.
It's going to be a wild ride. Stay tuned.
Okay, so those cuckoos, they're like tiny mafia bosses.
Running their little protection racket in the bird world?
Seriously. But what's even crazier is that this whole brood parasitism thing, it's not a one-off. It's evolved multiple times.
Oh, yeah. It's a testament to natural selection, you know?
Yeah.
Like it keeps finding this solution, even across different species.
It's like nature saying, hey, if it works, it works.
Exactly. And cuckoos, they might be the stars, but they're not alone.
Right.
You got cowbirds.
Oh, yeah, cowbirds. I always see them hanging around with pals.
Yeah, they're pretty adaptable when it comes to hosts.
Mm-hmm.
They've been known to parasitize hundreds of different species.
Wow, hundreds.
From tiny warblers to meadowlarks.
That's quite a range. So they're not as picky as cuckoos, then.
Not really. Cuckoos, with their genties and egg mimicry, they're more specialized.
So cowbirds are more opportunistic.
Exactly. They'll lay their eggs in a wider variety of nests, just hoping for the best.
Like playing the lottery?
Kind of. And this difference, it shows up in their eggs, too.
How so?
Well, cuckoo eggs, they often look just like the host's eggs.
Right.
But cowbird eggs, they're more variable.
So they don't bother with the whole mimicry thing.
Not always. Some do resemble certain host eggs, but it's not as consistent as with cuckoos.
So why haven't they evolved that perfect mimicry?
Well, remember the life dinner principle and the rare enemy effect?
Oh, yeah, the evolutionary pressures.
Right. So because cowbirds use more hosts, maybe each host species doesn't feel as much pressure to evolve defenses.
Like if they only see a cowbird egg every once in a while.
It might not be worth the effort to evolve a way to reject it.
Especially if there's a chance they might accidentally reject one of their own eggs.
Exactly. And another thing, cowbird chicks, they're not as aggressive as cuckoo chicks.
Oh, they don't go all gladiator on their nestmates.
Not usually. They often hatch alongside the host chicks and compete for food, but they're not as ruthless.
So they play nice.
Relatively speaking. And this probably affects the host's evolution too.
How so?
If the host can raise both its own chicks and a cowbird chick, then there's less pressure to reject those cowbird eggs.
It's like a weird kind of compromise.
Right. A bit of give and take in this evolutionary relationship.
Speaking of give and take, there's another group of brood parasites that are even more specialized than cuckoos.
Cuckoo finches.
Yeah, cuckoo finches. What's their deal?
Well, they're only found in Africa,
Okay.
and they target these birds called estrilded finches.
Estrilded finches.
They're known for their bright colors and social behavior.
So these cuckoo finches, they've picked a very specific target.
And their egg mimicry is next level.
Wait, even better than cuckoos?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
They don't just match the color and pattern of the host eggs. They match the variations within a single clutch.
Variations.
Like each egg in a clutch might have slightly different markings. And the cuckoo finch can lay an egg that matches those specific variations.
Wow, it's like custom-made camouflage.
It's crazy. And it's all thanks to their genes. Remember the cuckoo genties?
The cuckoo clans with their secret egg recipes?
Well, cuckoo finches have taken that to an extreme. They have a much more complex genetic system.
So even more egg recipes to choose from.
Exactly. And this has led to an intense arms race with the estrilded finches.
So the estrilded finches are fighting back.
Oh, yeah. They've evolved super sharp eyesight,
Like they're inspecting every detail of those eggs.
and they're constantly on guard, watching for any intruders.
It's an egg security operation.
And in response, the cuckoo finches have to keep refining their mimicry.
It's like a never-ending battle of one-upmanship.
It's fascinating.
It really is. Okay, so we've got cuckoos, cowbirds, cuckoo finches, all these different strategies for brood parasitism.
It's a surprisingly successful way to make a living in the bird world.
But what about the host birds? How do they stand a chance?
Well, that's the next chapter in our story. They've got their own defenses.
Defenses? Like what?
Well, there are all sorts of strategies, from simple behavior changes to more complex things.
Like evolving bigger brains to outsmart the parasites?
Not always. Sometimes simple solutions work best.
Okay.
Like many host birds have become super vigilant. They're always watching their nests.
Like they've installed security cameras.
Exactly. And some even get aggressive, attacking anything that comes near.
Wow, protective parents.
And then there's egg recognition.
Like they can tell which eggs are theirs.
Exactly. They've evolved to spot even tiny differences in shape, color, or pattern.
So they're like egg experts.
Absolutely. Some can even recognize variations within their own clutch.
That's amazing.
And then there are the cognitive defenses, the mental strategies.
Okay, brain power.
Right. Some host birds can actually count.
Count their eggs.
They can keep track of how many are in the nest. If there's an extra one, they know something's up.
That's incredible. Like they're doing inventory checks.
And some have even evolved memory-based defenses. They remember what their own eggs look like and compare them to any new ones.
So they're taking mental snapshots.
Exactly. And this can be super effective. They can reject parasitic eggs even if they look very similar.
So the host birds are fighting back.
Oh, yeah. They've got a whole arsenal of defenses. It's this constant back and forth that makes brood parasitism so interesting to study.
It's like a never-ending arms race.
And it's happening all around us, shaping the diversity of life in ways we're just beginning to understand.
It's amazing. So those host birds aren't just sitting ducks.
Not at all. They're active participants in this evolutionary dance.
And it's not just about brute force or cunning.
It's about finding the right balance between exploitation and defense. A balance that allows both parasites and hosts to persist.
It's a delicate balance.
And one that's constantly being challenged and reshaped by the forces of evolution.
Okay, I have to ask, this whole backward gene's eye view thing, is it just a cool way to think about evolution, or does it have practical applications?
It's both, actually. It's definitely a mind-bending way to look at things, to see the vast history contained within our genes. But it also has real-world applications.
Like what?
Well, understanding the evolution of genes can help us fight diseases.
Really? How so?
By tracing the evolution of a disease-causing gene, we can identify its weaknesses.
And develop more effective treatments.
Exactly. It can also help us understand how drug resistance evolves.
So we can stay one step ahead of those pesky pathogens.
Precisely.
It's amazing how this abstract concept can have such practical benefits.
It's a reminder that studying evolution isn't just about the past, it's about the future too.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes. I never realized how much I didn't know about cuckoos and brood parasitism.
It's a fascinating field.
It is. And it all comes back to this idea of the backward gene's eye view. It's such a powerful way to understand the interconnectedness of life.
It really is. And it shows us that evolution is full of surprises.
Definitely. So for our listeners out there, I highly recommend checking out the work of Nick Davies and Claire Spottiswoode. They've dedicated their careers to understanding these amazing birds.
Their research is truly groundbreaking.
And it shows us that there's always more to discover, always more to learn about the natural world.
Absolutely. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep that curiosity alive.
Wow, this brood parasitism is like a whole soap opera playing out in the bird world.
It really is. It's not just birds, though.
Really?
Yeah, you find it in other animals, too.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, there are some insects that do it.
Insects?
Yeah, like some butterflies and wasps, and even some fish.
Fish? Seriously?
There's this catfish that lays its eggs in the nests of mouth-brooding cichlids.
Mouth brooding? What's that?
These cichlids, they carry their eggs in their mouths to protect them.
Oh, wow.
But this sneaky catfish, it takes advantage of that.
So the catfish tricks the stitchlid into raising its young.
Exactly.
Ah.
Its eggs hatch first, and the catfish larvae actually eat the cichlid's own eggs.
That's brutal.
It's a tough world out there.
Yeah.
Going back to those cuckoo finches.
Yeah, I'm still amazed by how they can mimic those tiny variations in the host's eggs.
It's all about their genes.
Yeah.
They've got this incredibly complex system that allows for a huge range of egg variation.
So it's like they've got a whole library of egg designs to choose from.
Exactly. And remember those cuckoo genties, those specialized lineages?
Are the cuckoo clans?
Well, cuckoo finches have taken that to another level. They have so many more genties, so many more specialized families.
So they can fine-tune their egg mimicry to an incredible degree.
It's like they're expert forgers, creating these perfect replicas.
And the estrildid finches, they're not just sitting back and taking it, are they?
Oh no, they're evolving too. They've developed these amazing egg recognition abilities.
So it's like an arms race, with both sides constantly trying to outdo each other.
Precisely. The estrildid finches have gotten really good at spotting those fake eggs.
So the cuckoo finches have to keep getting better at mating them.
It's a never-ending cycle of adaptation and counter-adaptation.
And that's what drives evolution, right?
It's one of the key forces shaping the diversity of life.
But what about the host birds that don't have those super defenses?
Well, remember those principles we talked about, the life dinner principle and the rare enemy effect?
Yeah, the evolutionary trade-offs.
Right, so for some host species, it might not be worth the cost to evolve those defenses.
Especially if they don't encounter brood parasites that often.
Exactly. Evolution isn't about being perfect, it's about being good enough to survive.
So sometimes it's better to focus on other things, like finding food or avoiding predators.
It's all about finding the right balance.
This whole backward gene's eye view thing, it's pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. It makes you realize how much history is hidden within our own genes.
And it's not just theoretical, is it? It has practical applications, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For example, understanding the evolution of genes can help us fight diseases.
Really?
Yeah, by tracing the evolution of a disease-causing gene, we can figure out how to target it.
And develop better treatments.
Exactly. And it can also help us understand how drug resistance evolves.
So we can stay ahead of those superbugs.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Wow, this deep dive has been incredible. I've learned so much about cuckoos and brood parasitism.
It's been a pleasure exploring these topics with you.
And it all comes back to that backward gene's eye view. It's such a powerful way to think about evolution.
It really makes you appreciate the interconnectedness of life, doesn't it?
It does. And it shows us that evolution is full of surprises.
Always. So to our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop learning.
There's a whole world of